in Life Sciences in Germany, which is being organized by the German Center for Research and Innovation, the German Academic Exchange Service, which we are a part of, and with the support of the European Molecular Biology Organization, the EMBO. My name is Adishri Jamkedkar. I'm the head of programs at the German Center for Research and Innovation here in New Delhi, and I will be the moderator for this session today. So in today's session, we're going to discuss funding opportunities for life sciences, get insight into the lab culture, international cooperation, international networking opportunities, and we might even get a tip or two for your applications for funding. I have with me three panelists here today who are from the field and have a very interesting career graph. And I'm going to introduce them to you shortly. But before that, for the audience, you can interact with the panelists, you can interact with us in the chat option, which you see below on your screen. Please type in your questions or your comments, and your questions we will take up during the session or towards the end of the session. And we will also have some important links, some presentation slides for you, which we will send around after this web talk is done. I'm going to go geographically from west to east for my introductions, and I'm going to start with Darshana. Darshana Gupta is a doctoral student at the Beisel Lab at the Helmholtz Institute of RNA-based Infection Research in Würzburg in Germany. And she's a DAAD PhD awardee. She obtained her master's before this in biotechnology and biochemical engineering from Indian Institute of Technology in Kharagpur. And she worked as an associate in the cell line development team at Intas Pharmaceuticals in India. Her research focuses on development of genome editing technologies using CRISPR-Cas systems. Thank you so much, Darshana, for joining us today. Next, slightly south in Germany, I go to Dr. Nukala, who's the head of the government senior community who heads the government senior community engagement and is also the head of government relations and global activities at the European Molecular Biology Organization. And as I said, EMBO is partnering up with us for this web talk. He's based in Heidelberg in Germany and has worked, studied, and researched in India, United States, and Germany. Before the EMBO, he worked as a senior advisor for biomedical science and technology and health at the Office of Global Affairs, United States Department of Health and Human Services at the US Embassy in New Delhi, and also as a grants officer and policy officer at the Wellcome Trust DBT Alliance in Hyderabad, India. He did his PhD in anatomy and neurobiology from University of Kentucky and has an advanced master's in international science and technology from the George Washington University, also in the United States. Thank you so much, Vid, for your support and joining us today. Then we go all the way to California in the United States to Dr. Santosh Kumar Kuncha, who's a scientist in the Bay Area Institute of Life Sciences at the Altos labs. He holds a PhD in structural molecular biology from Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology in India, and he followed it up with a postdoc, so I think a couple of postdocs. And he was also in Germany at the Max Planck Institute of Biophysics and the Goethe University. He was awarded the EMBO Fellowship for his postdoc, during which he made groundbreaking discoveries in protein quality control. He has many accolades for his research, including the INSA medal. Now, in this web talk, we will have a discussion with all of these three. But before we dive into those discussions, I would like to give you a bit of a brief idea on where research is done, where you can look up more information, so that you have a bit of terminologies also in mind, which we would speak of during this session. Now, for the audience, if you know, this is the last session in the web talk series that we have been hosting this week on research careers in Germany, where we looked at funding opportunities. We also met the non-university big public research institutions earlier on day one. We looked into application processes, what makes a strong application, how do you contact your host, for example, and we also looked at opportunities for social sciences and humanities just shortly today in the afternoon. Let me give you a slight recap of what we did, as I said, to set a tone for this talk. And I would like to share with you a couple of slides just very, very quickly. I hope you can see my screen. Do you see my screen? Can someone give me a...
Yeah, Adishri, it's there.
Yes, okay,
Yep.
thank you so much. Right. So as you know, in Germany, research is done at three pillars, so to say, or in three pillars. So one is the university or higher education institutions, which account for more than 400 such institutions, the non-university research organizations, which are state funded but also are private, which include a big number of more than 1,000. And research is also done in industry and companies, which accounts for about 18,000 companies, includes also manufacturing units, service sectors, etc. Here in my next slide, you will see that the interface at which these institutions are placed. So this is classified according to the public funding, private funding, but also basic research, applied research, also industrial research. And we spoke earlier this week with representatives of Fraunhofer, Helmholtz, Leibniz, Max Planck to understand in which areas are they strong, what kind of research do they support, and also we met the funding institutions. You would also find this graph on the website of Research in Germany. You will also get these links from us slightly later during this week. And as life science research is really broad, and today we are going to look into more experience sharing from researchers who have been there, done that. I would like to take you through a short view of sort of like the clusters where research in certain areas is done. So here is, for example, these are the clusters which you can find are funded by the German Research Foundation for Cancer Research in Germany. They include the non-university research institutions, but also the research institutions which are funded by the states. And the research training groups, for example. Now, this is not a comprehensive view, but these are some of the institutions. And likewise, there is also information available on information available on research in cellular and molecular biology. For example, you find a nice graph here, as well as immunology and infectiology. Now, I've only chosen a couple of them to give you an idea that information is available for you. For example, on the website of Research in Germany, we will also pass around these links to you, and you can look at these institutions. Also, look at the website of Research in Germany, where you find a very comprehensive overview of where research is done, what kind of funding is available, and how can you go about approaching the institutions and your further steps, but also like funding, cooperation, etc. And my last slide is for this website called Get It, which is a nice portal giving an overview on the research institutions in Germany, which offers you very detailed information on the individual schools that are available, departments, also gives you information on the hosts. So for those who are looking at PhD, postdoc, and would like to, who are struggling, for example, to see where can you find the institutions, details, how can you go about it, and breaking down the research that's done. This is a really nice overview for you. So much from me for this overview. Now I'm going to stop presenting and go right away into talking about funding and applications, as I just mentioned it. And I would like to start the conversation with the panelists on this topic. My first question actually goes straight to you, Vid. Speaking about funding organizations and research promotion organizations, could you tell us in a nutshell what the EMBO is? What kind of offers does it have for individual researchers in terms of grants and fellowships? And what can the researchers expect from these grants? Over to you. Vid, you're muted. If you could unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thanks, Adishri, and the team at DAAD and DWIH for inviting me. It was nice to meet you in person earlier this year. I'm glad to be part of this forum. So I have a few slides I could perhaps start with, and then if there are questions, I'm happy to take those up later. So let me share my screen. Do you see the slides? Yeah, okay. All right, so who and what is EMBO? So it's an organization of close to 2,000 leading researchers that promote excellence in life sciences in Europe and beyond. So EMBO stands for European Molecular Biology Organization. Although over the past few years, it has grown beyond molecular biology and it has grown beyond Europe. And that's where the India EMBO partnership comes in play. And there are three major goals of the organization. One is to support talented researchers at all stages of their careers, starting with PhD and above. So we're looking for folks who are already committed to a career in research. Second is to simulate the exchange of scientific information. And the third is to help build a research environment and community where scientists can achieve their best work. So we do this through publications and policy and other aspects, which I won't get into all of that in today, but I'm happy to take any questions or direct you to where you can find that information. I suspect most of the participants on for today's session are probably in the early career stage. So if you're looking, you've done your PhD and you're looking for opportunities in Germany, but also broadly in Europe, which is what EMBO caters to. There are 4 different schemes with different objectives. So the first one is the EMBO postdoctoral fellowships. We have scientific exchange grants, new venture fellowships, and core facility. So I'll very briefly walk you through the first, so postdoc, scientific exchange, and core facility. One thing to keep in mind, all of these require international mobility. So that's a key requirement, and I'm sure Santosh can comment on that later in the program. So if you're looking for a postdoctoral fellowship, again, this is in life sciences. This was started back in 1960, so it's a really old program, very well established, quite popular, quite competitive. So as you can see, we receive more than 1,000 applications each year, out of which there are about 150 to 200 awarded. It's for a 2-year contract, which also comes with other perks such as childcare allowance, parental leave, and relocation allowance. And you also get to network with your peers through EMBO Fellows meeting, as well as take on additional soft skills trainings, including the lab leadership course. The scientific exchange grants are actually available for researchers at all career stages, where we're looking if you're setting up new collaborations. Again, international mobility is required. Here, the success rate is much better. It's about 50%, and it covers the travel costs and the subsistence in the country of visit. And it can be anywhere from a week to 3 months, and there's no deadline here, and there is a continuous evaluation that's done. And just between the postdoctoral fellows, I think we have had about 7, if I'm not mistaken. And the scientific exchange grants, we had 31. And these are all coming from India to Germany. Of course, there are others going to other countries. I'll finish this slide and then I'll stop. So this is for core facility fellowships for any scientist or technician or staff who's part of a core facility at your institute to learn further about specific techniques. Again, it's open to different career stages. International mobility is required, very similar to the scientific exchange grant. It could be a week up to a month, and it covers the travel costs and subsistence. There's no deadline, and so I'll put in the link where you can get more information about all of these. So I'll stop there, and then we can come back. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Vid. Straight away clearing some information here. There's a question which says, can you elaborate on PhD opportunities? So does EMBO give grants for PhD already, or does it start at postdoc level?
It starts at postdoc level. So that's the first, I guess, stage where we come into the picture. But having said that, once you do your postdoc, we know some of them come back to as young investigators back into our network, and some of them go on to become EMBO members who are nominated and selected, including Nobel Prize winners. So it could be a lifetime relationship, but it typically starts post PhD.
All right, thank you. From post-PhD to pre-PhD, I'm going to go now to Darshana, who was a PhD awardee for, I think in 2020, 21. Darshana, please correct me. Um, yeah, and I would like to know, so where did you find out about the DAD? So the scholarship, how was your application process like? And how did you go about finding your host, for example?
So I came to know about the DAAD particularly during my master's when I was at IIT Kharagpur because we had this program where there was like an exchange program where you could do your master's thesis in Germany. So I became aware about this funding there, and then later on when I was applying to my PI, my current PI, Chase Beisel, he recommended me to go through the DAAD funding to get a scholarship for the project in his group. So that was how I actually came to know about um, the funding opportunity in the first place. But finding the host was a little bit tricky because I had my research interests in a very specific area. I wanted to work with tech translation, so taking research from the bench into a commercial kind of environment. So because of that, it was tricky finding a host, but I came to know about Chase through contact. So a friend of mine was working in the building. It was coincidental that at the same time Chase was making his move from Germany, from US to Germany. So that's how I came to know about it, and that's how I applied. Yep.
Right, great, thanks. One follow-up question for that would be, you successfully cracked the scholarship fellowship. What do you think sort of helped you, get a little further in the game there? So any tips
So
for our future applicants?
sure. So I think one of the things that was most important, at least, so for the first round, the application itself is quite important. For the application to be completed, it's essential that you have a host. So that was the first thing that I actually got. So confirmation that if we get this funding, Chase would be willing to host me. The second thing was the research proposal itself. So when you have the host in the picture, then he can actually guide you while parallelly assessing how you would turn out as a student, I guess. So that worked out really well because I could get guidance on writing a proposal because most of us at this stage do not have that experience at all, what a realistic proposal would look like. And the third thing that worked out was, I think, the motivation letter. So you need to so that was something that also came up during my interview. The reason why you actually want to do a PhD, the reason why you want to do it in Germany or in the specific lab, or so your reasons need to be really strong. And especially in my case, since I was transitioning from the industry back into academia, that question kind of became a little bit important. So yeah, that was all.
Thank you. So doing your homework and doing your homework about the host institution, finding and starting well in time, I think that's really important, right?
Yes,
To make a very
that,
solid application,
yes.
right? Um, Here, I would like to highlight that the DAD scholarships are at the moment open for application. The deadline is 20th of October. So if some of you are interested in that, please take a look at it. I'm going to drop a link here in the chat already. And if you have any questions, please reach out to our office, so the DAD office. Did you, Darshana, I'm going to take a question from the chat. Did you apply for PhD using a GATE score? Like how much of these entrance tests do you think are scores are play a role in your application?
So for me, since I had been working in an industry for almost 3 years, the GATE score applicability was not really there that much. So I don't think that helped a lot. I think it was really the research proposal that worked out. So I think it's important that you find a proposal that aligns with the lab, also the lab's interests also, because you can come up with a really fancy proposal, but if no one is willing to take you in for that, it doesn't work that way. So you need to match your research interest with the interest of the group. So that's why I feel that it's more important that you get the host into the picture the first, and then you can go along and
Right.
pitch your ideas to them. So yeah, but the gate score was, I don't think, very helpful.
Okay. And this scholarship funded your mobility. So for 3 years,
Yes.
could you highlight on what all did you get as a part of this scholarship for our audience?
Yep, sure. So my first travel to Germany was covered by DAAD. I think the language training for a month. So in my case, since I basically transitioned during or I should say right after the COVID lockdown, so my training was online, language training. So that was something that DAAD paid for. Uh, we get also a research allowance for the group. So my PI gets that. That's about €1,000 every year. And as part of the DART funding program, you need to reapply, like, or rather provide a report on what work you have done in the previous year to get your extension for the next year.
For the next year. So
So
it's
yeah,
evaluated regularly for
exactly.
you. Right. That's
Yeah,
important. Right.
yeah,
Thank you. Thank you, Darshana. Now to Santosh, to California. Santosh, you did
Yeah.
your PhD in India. Also did, I think, one postdoctoral stint in India already, and then you moved to Germany for
Yeah.
your next set of research. And then as a part of your then postdoc, you got an EMBO fellowship there.
hmm
Could you tell us about this journey? And again, my question would be, how did you choose the EMBO fellowship? And how did you think the fellowship chose you? So what did you do right to get there?
Yeah. Firstly, thank you for having me here for all the three organizations. Um, Going towards my journey, I've done my PhD from CCMB, and I have done a small, like 6 months postdoc at CCMB after my PhD because times were difficult because of COVID. I couldn't move immediately. But however, that during that time, I was working on my EMBO postdoc fellowship. So first question to answer your first question, from where did I get to know about EMBO and all? It's a prestigious fellowship. You don't need any introduction for it, and it is very widely talked about when you're doing a PhD. When you go across conferences, you can see that people hanging around. And EMBO also does quite a lot of workshops where they highlight their programs, going to research institute to research institute. I remember recently, like in I think March or February, they went around to different institutes. They make these clusters in India, and they go from institute to institute explaining their programs and having some kind of scientific exchange as well during this process. In fact, they do a pretty good job of getting some PIs from Germany and introducing the research as well. So if anyone is interested in moving to EMBO postdoc, that is the first point I would say to start off there. Keep looking at their websites. And coming to how do you apply for it and how do you make a good application for it? It's a mix and match. So first thing is you need to have a host ready for you. That is, you need to talk to a particular PI who is ready to host you. So typically, you end up with one PI you are interested and the PI is interested in you. It's not that you can do 2, 3 parallel applications at once. You can do only one application at once. So, and the first rule of the game is first write down your strengths on a piece of paper. What did your PhD offer you? What is your technical expertise? What is your scientific expertise? And what does the host offer you? It has to be slightly different. It should not be exactly the same thing what you have done in your PhD. And both, if you can complement your expertise with the new expertise of the lab, where you can learn, and even the lab can learn from you, that makes a very good mixed proposal. So if you can put these things to points together, that will make a good application. And in the second phase where you have actually a interview where you have to present your work, so these are the questions which even the interviewer keeps looking at. So what is new you're bringing to the table? And if you are doing an interdisciplinary, that's even better because you can ask more better questions. So this is a recipe for a successful application, I think.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Santosh. How, when did you start preparing for this fellowship? So how much in advance did you already start your homework?
So the thing is, even though you can prepare much before with respect to the proposal and all, the one problem is preparing much before ahead is you need to have a host lab. Unless you do not have a host lab, you cannot prepare your proposal. You cannot be doing totally something different than what the host is interested in. So you have to align your goals with the lab goals which your host is ready to. So it's going to be typically the moment you have a postdoc offer, that is the action begins there. So it typically takes 3 to 4 months to write down the proposal, get it corrected from the host, as well as you do the corrections. And I think there are two deadlines per year to apply to the EMBO fellowship. And the movement is the one of the major criteria is you need to internationally relocate. That is, move from India to any part of Europe. And it also has some member states which we can highlight upon, where you can even those offer. And coming to the benefits and all, it's pretty much like what Darshana has explained. Like you get a written travel ticket, and everything is taken care, like allowances and childcare and all. It's a pretty good offer.
Great. Thanks a lot, Santosh, for that insight. I see a question in the chat speaking about lab cultures, and that's what was also going to be my next section to ask both of you. So maybe Santosh, you could continue there and tell us what are the primary sort of differences that you find in, the research lab cultures in India and Germany, and how easy or difficult was it for you to do the transition?
Yeah, this is a very good question because the expectations has to be right. And Darshana will talk about the PhD part, but let me talk about the postdoc. So PhD is more of a training where you are actually getting trained and you will have much more guidance. But where at the postdoc level, you are actually preparing for a career beyond that, where you want to be more independent. So that begins from day one of writing your proposal, where you show your intent, how will you write your proposal, how much expertise you have to make it happen. So it's not that EMBO looks at you whether your application, your proposal is going to be successful or no. It looks at the practicality and your approach, and how independently you can think about it. And coming to the lab culture, they are in general supportive of most of the things what you have done. I can say that I was very fortunate to have a very good mentor in the lab. Labs are accommodative of you, and but generally another uh, hiccup you have with respect to Germany and all is the language. I do not know German even today, but I never had an issue. We had, of course, you need some bureaucracy work to be done, but you get so much help from your lab mates that you don't realize that, oh, this was sometime an obstacle. No, it's never an obstacle. And it was pretty easy for me, I can tell you this.
Thank you. I think that puts a lot of our audience at ease, saying that you can also, manage without having to know German in your day-to-day life. I would ask the same question to Darshana, though, because Darshana, you got trained in the language as a part of your PhD scholarship. How much do you think you, at your PhD level or in Würzburg, for example, did you need German? We recommend also that for day-to-day living in Germany, the language can help. But knowing German, how much do you think that puts you at edge amongst your, say, fellow participants? Darshana, you're on mute.
Sorry for that. Yeah, so getting the German language course in the picture is very helpful, actually. I would say for Würzburg and for the research field in general, it's not that much required because most of our papers are in English. Thankfully, my PI is also from US, so that barrier also does not exist because Germans are a little bit hesitant when it comes to speaking English, but they're going to practice their English on you, so that's helpful. That's very nice. But yeah, for day-to-day living, it's a little bit helpful if you know some German, but I would say this is exclusive to some cities because I interact with a lot of colleagues, and I came to know that in some cities, for example, Vienna, it's very difficult to get by without knowing German. Also, for a lot of bureaucratic stuff, people can help you out the minute you ask, for sure. That's really good here, but knowing something is better. Like at least A1, A2 is definitely going to be
Okay, so
helpful.
you would recommend that at least a bit of German helps you. Thank you.
Yes.
Right, thanks for that. So as both of you moved from India to Germany, how much was your host lab helpful in, helping you integrate into Germany? So was there some kind of support available even beforehand, before you moved? Were there sort of international programs available or international offices, for example, at the universities or the research institutions who helped your transition become smoother? Darshana, maybe you could take a go here.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, the institution helped out quite a lot because we need to get the hosting letter for the visa application and everything. And they were really on point with that. So that's something that is really good. The systems are super smooth and they get back to you really soon. They respond to emails very soon. So that's really nice. The only thing that I would say is don't contact them in December because most of them are unavailable. So, but otherwise, they were very helpful. Definitely, the host institution helps.
I would also add August.
Oh, sure.
Yes, so the summer holiday time and the Christmas, New Year's holiday time, I think these are lean periods, so you may not get answers quickly. Yeah, thank you. Santosh, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, it was pretty easy because they have their international offices, and you can, if you have any kinds of doubt, even the silliest question you have, you can write to them. And generally they have this FAQs which are already well laid out. If you go through them, it will be easy. But in case if you just want to talk, and for postdocs, since you know exactly which lab you're getting into, you can always get in touch with the lab secretaries, lab managers, and they help you with a lot of things, including your accommodations and all. So they are pretty helpful in that.
Okay, thanks both of you. Does EMBO offer any support for the incoming researchers?
You mean coming back to India or?
No, sorry. I meant like for researchers coming from abroad, let's say now in this context to Germany, for a postdoc fellowship. How much support do you offer? How much handholding is possible for researchers?
So, so in terms of our support, it's basically providing the funding support, and actually as we speak, we are in discussion. So I'm in addition to my head government relations portfolio, I'm also the senior community engagement officer. In that capacity, we are now looking into how we can support um, both fellows and perhaps even alumni as they go through the program. So obviously they are doing their research at their host institute, and that's all the scientific aspect. But maybe they could benefit from networking with their peers, or and I'm sure Santosh could also comment on that. Or maybe they're looking for mentorship, or some career development opportunities, post PhD, or sorry, after their fellowship. So we're in the process of putting together some of these elements. Um, and I think the pandemic was a huge reset for everyone. So everyone has to now thinking about, okay, what is missing and what more can be done. So we most recently in June, we did a survey of um, our current fellows, postdoctoral fellows, and asked them what they thought was most important as they're going through this journey. And based on that, now we're sort of developing, okay, if it is mentorship, what would it look like? Or if it is networking, what sort of online platforms or in-person interaction should we put in place? So that's where we are. So I think in the next couple of months, we'll slowly start rolling out some of these.
Thanks, Vid. That looks like an interesting study and a program that's upcoming. I have one more question in sort of like this section that I'm focusing on right now is how international were your labs already? So, and how much so sort of like interaction is possible between, let's say, two institutions for your research? Did you need that sort of like resource sharing? And was that easily possible? Was that restricted? Maybe Santosh, you could give us some
Yeah,
insight into that.
yeah, yeah. So for regarding the international nature of the lab. So lab was almost 25 people in the lab, and of which only 2 or 3 were Germans, and rest all were actually from different countries. In fact, from UK, China, Vietnam. So we are from different countries, and that makes it even more interesting because you get a taste of all the cultures and all the ideas from a different perspective. And what was the second question that you had follow-up thing?
Sort of, did you, for your research particularly, it's a
Yeah,
case-to-case basis question, did you have to interact with other
yeah,
institutions? How is that regional network, for example, of institutions or research bodies, how is that
yeah.
enabled?
So coming to the collaborations part, I mean, since you are at a postdoctoral level, everyone is doing a different kind of project. You collaborate within the lab with each other and also outside the lab. Example for the resources coming to, even though I was fully employed by Gupta University, I also was able to get a visiting employment at Max Planck, and we could access the cryo facility there, which is a structural biology hub there. So this is getting the best of both the worlds, that you get to the lab what you want, and also since Max Planck's are almost most of the time they're around the university corners, so it's easy to access all the facilities from Max Planck, and they're pretty much open about it and they're very helpful. So in fact, I got trained at Max Planck, even though I'm not a full-time employee at Max
Perfect, thank you. Darshana, do you have anything to add to this? Otherwise, I have a
Actually,
follow-up question for you.
yeah, sure. So there's nothing more to add to it. It's definitely a very international environment, as Santosh already mentioned. We also have roughly around 24 people in the group, and all from different places. Again, 4 to 5 Germans, not more, and you get a taste of all the cultures. So in the same building that I am working in, there are 3 institutes, and resources are shared very well. Collaborations are highly encouraged around the institute and even beyond. So, as you already mentioned, Adishri, there are these excellence centers. For example, I recognize Helmholtz Association was there. So it's very easy to collaborate across the Helmholtz groups with other labs. We also have collaborations with Oxford University. So that's very encouraged.
Thanks a lot. That's going to be my next section. But before that, one last question to Darshana here. How much, so you know the research system, the PhD, how that takes place in India and now in Germany in a way. How much is the pressure for publications in Germany during your PhD? So in India, you have a certain number that you have to produce, get your degree. Is that the same in Germany?
Yep. Actually, that is the same. At least one publication is essential as part of completion of your PhD. But if you have very valid reasons for why that publication couldn't come in time, they wouldn't hold you back on your degree for that. For example, someone can get scooped in the final year or something. So they are wary of that situation. They can understand that and work accordingly. But the whole exercise of writing a publication itself is pretty important. And that's why it's kind of kept a part of the a requirement for graduating. So is participating in international conferences. So it is also something that actually differs from institute to institute and graduate school to graduate school, because not all graduate schools have this mandate. Also depends on the field of research. I think because if you are really into fundamental biology, getting data, or if, for example, if you're working with mice or something, getting data is more time consuming, right? So their projects can be longer than 3 or 4 years, and publications could come in later, but at least
Planck.
one is kind of essential. Yeah.
Yeah, Adishri, can I add a point here?
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
Thanks, Darshana.
I mean, thanks to EMBO, what it has done recently is they told that we don't. It's not important that your publication needs to be peer reviewed and published. We do also accept the preprints like bioarchive. That is a huge step because most of the time the publications are delayed by a year, 2 years sometimes, because it goes over reiteration of revisions and all. But when the moment they agreed for this, that we will also look at the bioarchive, which are preprint, it's a big relief for most of the uh, PhDs who are looking for postdoc.
Perfect. Thank you, both of you. And speaking of cross collaborations, conferences, that's the perfect segue to my next question, next set of questions, actually. So international networking, career development, that would be what I was focused on. And I go with my next question to you, Vid, because EMBO has grants, fellowships available for networking for scientists. What sort of offers do you have? And interesting is also that it's possible to avail of these also in your host country already. So you need, I'm speaking of Germany now, but it's also possible to host something in India. Could you give us some more information on that?
Sure. Maybe just to quickly um, close out on the point that Darshana and Santosh made about publications. So in the postdoctoral fellowship evaluation, we don't look at impact factors anymore. So that's something that potential applicants should really keep in mind, because I know there's sort of an excessive emphasis on this metric, and EMBO is one of the founders of the San Francisco Declaration. It's called DORA, on research assessment. So I think I may have posted the link. If not, I will do so after. But yeah, just keep in mind that impact factor is not going to make or break, but it's all the other things that both of the other panelists have shared with everyone already. So coming back to your question, so so let's say Santosh and Darshana, they've done their PhD and their postdoc and in Germany or elsewhere, and they decide to come back to India. What sort of opportunities are available? So I will share my screen once more. Just a couple of slides. Okay, so we have what's called the EMBO Young Investigator Program. So this was launched in 2000. This is for new group leaders. Sorry, I don't know. So this is for new group leaders within their first 4 years of setting up their lab. And we provide support for networking and training for themselves and their staff. And there's PhD courses made available there. They can avail the EMBO Lab Leadership course. And they also get funding, well, not funding, but like small grants to establish collaborations, visits, do lectures. So this is something, again, to keep in mind. And this is competitive across all of the member countries. But coming to India specifically, so we have these 4 partner countries: Chile, India, Singapore, and Taiwan. So if you're an Indian researcher, you've done your PhD postdoc, thinking of coming back to India, or you've already come back and you're setting up your lab, this is another scheme that's available specifically. Again, this is sort of a variant of the young investigators. I think here it's up to 6 years of setting up of your lab. Again, for networking and training and building a community of researchers in that country. So as Santosh mentioned, when we traveled to India in February, end of February, March, our global investigators in India actually helped. They served as the host institutes, or they partnered with other institutes in that city. So we would come there as a delegation, and then we had a lot of scientific exchange, networking, training for early career researchers. So this is another scheme that's, this is again, if you're a group leader already. So I don't know if that I answered your question or not, but there's another aspect which I can come back to later.
Right, thanks. So these are the EMBO opportunities, and now maybe on the same lines, a question to Darshana and Santosh. If not for these, how was the how or what kind of opportunities were possible for you for, saying, attending international conferences, networking, and how much support and encouragement, and I also say support in terms of funding, was available from your own labs or institutions for this? Who wants to go
Yeah,
first? Yes,
yeah,
Santosh,
I
go.
can go. Yeah. Regarding this, attending conferences and all, EMBO does not provide this support of paying for your conference travel and all. But however, the host laboratory where you're there and the university, they do actually support all these kind of funding, presenting poster, presenting, having a presentation presented at a university conference or a university within the country, cross country. They are generally supportive of all this. So it depends on lab to lab. It varies a lot, and these are the questions which you need to actually talk to the lab members when you're going there. I would always say is once you talk to the host and it's decided, before confirming everything, just have an informal chat with the lab members. It always helps you to clear the air with respect to these kind of questions, because they are the questions which are lab specific, which no one can have a generalized answer for.
Right. And one more thing would be to contact perhaps like the existing researchers, no, in the group. That always helps
Yeah, yeah,
if it's an
that's what I
international
meant.
group. Right, right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Lab members means the
yes,
researchers.
yes.
Yeah,
So thanks. So for those who are still looking for PhDs, postdoc, etc., you will always find details of the lab members very often on the website, no? So there's possibility
yes,
of
yes,
contacting them, getting information ahead of your approaching the host as well. So
yeah,
yeah, go ahead, Darshana.
Yeah, so I would also say the same. One advantage that comes with when you come with your own personal funding is then the lab's resources are quite open for you. Like your PI would generally not restrict you a lot because you are basically free for them. So that's one advantage. And they definitely encourage conferences. And in fact, so from my graduate school, we have a minimum requirement of participation and poster presentation or talk presentation in at least 3 conferences for for the duration of my PhD. So that's kind of very helpful. It's a great environment. It's wonderful for discussions, for meeting new people, trying different food. It's really nice.
yeah, yeah. Darshana, you have touched upon a very important point, that having a fellowship, how helpful it is.
Yeah.
I can tell you this, that it's not only you who are happy about getting a fellowship, your lab will be proud to host a fellowship having person, because it's a credential which can be advertised by the lab as well. So we are hosting an EMBO fellow, we are hosting a DAAD fellow. So it's a two-way street. Do not think only one way, always.
Actually, I will just add to that. So that is precisely the reason why it's important to align your goals with the goals of the lab. So then the PI gets his work kind of done in return. He doesn't have to really pay you, and then he can support
Mhm.
you. And also, what Santosh mentioned was quite important. So all the profiles that are made online for all the PIs are very helpful. They give a lot of information, but actually, the lab setup is something that only the members in the lab can give you. So I would really, really recommend to talk to the lab members before you decide on the PI or the host. If you have options, definitely try to screen through that process because it could vary a lot. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, both of you. This was also one of the things that was brought up in the chat, no? How do you decide on a particular lab? So this is one of the way you contact the lab mates, existing lab mates, look it up thoroughly, have conversations beforehand to get
Yeah.
insights into how the day-to-day functions there. Um, for Santosh, I have the next question
Hmm.
because you made a transition now to the industry.
Yeah.
How much did you get a chance to, during your postdoc, did you get a chance to get exposure to the industry already in Germany? Um, were there aspects from the fellowship that particularly encouraged you? Was there a connection there? And how was the transition for you? So to going from research now to industry, and that too in the United States.
Yeah. So this is something which you have to take a very pre-informed decision when you go for a postdoc, because few labs concentrate only in academia. Few labs have connections with industries where they're trying to help industries collaborate with industries. So the lab where I choose had both the flexibilities. They're doing academic research as well as they were connected to the industries. So this kind of opportunities help you to learn both the aspects, and you decide at a later stage which way you want to go. So the lab where I was hosted had both the industries connection, like they had collaboration with Merck, Genentech, and all. So that kinds of gives you a perspective of what is happening there. You might not be working in those projects, but your colleagues are working, who can give you a taste of what is happening there. And this is something which you need to uh, research a bit about before joining a lab. This is important. You can talk to the lab members again with respect to how open the lab is and how willful are they doing, helping you to get into the industry and all. Yeah.
Thank you. And Santosh, and why the United States? Why did you decide not to stay back in Germany?
It's nothing country specific. I move where the best opportunities come for me, and the science and the venture which I've joined is an Altos lab, where we decided to they decided to reverse cell injury, disease, and aging. And it is not a fully industry yet. It is, they say that it is a mixture of academia and industry, and I'm enjoying it. It's been a month I've joined here, so I think it's good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Darshana, did you have anything to add to this question of industry exposure?
So that's also, I mean, as Santosh said very nicely, that it really depends on what you want. That's why you want to do a PhD becomes very important. Think about, take some time to think about it, what you want to do after your PhD, because doing a PhD itself is not an achievement. It's really what you do with it, with that training, with that information. So for me also, I wanted to join a lab that has industrial collaborations, if not at least some technology development aspect, which is what my current lab works on. So my PI has a branch that works exclusively on fundamental biology while parallelly creating startups. So that's like the perfect environment for me to blend in. And yeah, that really helps. So knowing what you want and why you want to take this route to attain that, that is something that is going to help you even through the interviews that you give to get the fellowship in the first place.
Yeah.
Thank you, both of you. With to you, one question would be, can you apply for a single fellowship 2 times? So let's say I want to do 2 stints in postdoc. Can you apply twice, maybe in different countries, for example?
Uh, as far as I know, the answer is no. I think you're expected to move on. Yeah, and something that comes up is should the fellowship be longer? Should it be 3 years or maybe more? And then it's always a question of trade-off. Then you might not be able to fund as many as you would. If it's a 2 years, you could fund more people. If it's 3 years, if it's the same amount of money that we have, then it would be less, and it would become more competitive. So it's always a trade-off. But yeah, to your question, as far as I know, I think it's the 2 years, and then you're expected to move on.
All right, thank you. But you wanted to come back to more networking opportunities. You wanted to present.
Yeah, actually, I
Yes,
saw one question. Someone read my mind about the slides I was going to show about
yes,
conferences.
right.
I have my last set of slides, and then open to answering any questions. So let me share. Okay, so we actually have a courses and workshops program. So this again provides funds to scientists to organize meetings in the area of life sciences. That's my next slide. Again, it comes in 3 variants. As you can see, we organize more than 90 meetings each year. We as in we fund, and it's the organizers who actually do the meetings. It could be practical courses. These are on techniques. These could be workshops discussing the latest developments, and there are lecture courses for PhD students and postdocs. Some of these happen in India and some of them happen in Europe or elsewhere. So we also provide travel grants, childcare support, and registration fee waivers so that scientists in India could attend some of these meetings. Something that didn't come up, but I just wanted to throw it out there. We have EMBO Press. It's actually uh, yeah, pretty well known. Again, in the life sciences, there are these 5 different journals. I think there's one coming up, a new one coming up soon. Um, and all of these have now become open access. And these are all peer-reviewed journals. So if please go to the website, see if the work that you're doing is relevant to any of these journals. We have in-house editors who help with reviewing papers and getting them out. And I think that brings me to my last slide. So EMBO Solutions is a sister entity, and they provide soft skills training. So this could be on research integrity, planning and writing papers, scientific presentations, or it's about communication, negotiation, project management, conflict resolution. I suspect Santosh may have taken 1 or 2 of these, so I'll ask him to comment. But yeah, that's sort of all the well, most of the offerings that we have relevant to early career researchers.
Thank you, Vid. I'm going to now take a couple of questions from the audience. One question was for Darshana to say, how did you prepare for your PhD during your master's at IIT Kharagpur? Did you take any special courses? Did you train yourself for skills that you thought you would need for your PhD in Germany, or extra internships or something that would be helpful for people to understand?
Sure. So there were no extra internships, nothing, no special training that I took over to get into a PhD, because at that time I didn't even know that I want to do a PhD. So it was only during my time at the company, at the industry where I was working, that I got a sense of what it is that a PhD experience would give me. Because I really didn't have that figured out before, not even during my master's. So I think it's really important to know what kind of skill set you see yourself building during your PhD, and then look for a lab accordingly.
Thank you. Looking for labs, I think that remains a persistent question in the chat. So looking for hosts, how do you get started? No, how should your first email to the host look like? Definitely not generic, saying, oh, I'm looking for a PhD opportunity, I'm looking for postdoc opportunity. But since you both have done it, what could you advise to the audience?
Yeah, the thing is, in the age of ChatGPT, it becomes really difficult to have lab specific letters. So you need to be very lab specific. You need to actually, for this to happen, you should go back to the lab website. Almost every lab has a website. Look at the recent papers. Look at the reviews written. Reviews are written when they are master of some field. So read them a bit. And what do you have any? Look at the recent paper. What do you think about the paper? If you can include these kind of points in your first letter to the PI, the host, I mean, it shows your interest and intent towards the lab. So you should get you should make sure that you show that you already read the papers and you're interested, genuinely interested. At the same time, if you have 1 or 2 good recommendation of projects, oh, what is happening in this cell type? So what can we do it? How does it differ? How does evolutionarily these pathways differ? So these are the questions which, if you raise these questions, it sparks some interest in the host as well. They will be willing to talk to you. This is something which is important.
Thank you. And is there a particular tip for writing CVs for Germany? Do you
And
think that there's any difference from what you would present here and to approach a German professor, for
yeah,
example?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I have not done anything differently in terms of CV. CV has to be compact. Please do not fill it as much as possible. No, that's not the idea of the CV. The CV has to give the best of you in as minimal words as possible. And at the same time, if you think the professor you're writing to is comfortable with German, just do a Google Translate. It helps them as well. Google Translate and get it reviewed by someone. So you'll have two versions of your CV. And these days, there is a new concept which is coming up. I mean, it's been old, but since lack of time with the PIs, you might have a 10-page CV. It has no meaning. But if you can make another CV which is just one page, so you can attach both them and put the header as one-page CV and a full CV. So if they like the one-page CV, they will automatically scroll down to your full-length CV. So this is something which you need to practice it on daily basis.
Thank you. Thanks, Santosh.
Yeah.
Darshana, any more tips to add?
No, the exact same thing again. I'm seeing now that my PhD application is going to probably be helpful for the postdoc as well. But yeah, so think of both the perspectives. So when you are applying, of course, you are writing down your points of why you would like to join the lab, but also think of what would make your PI or the host interested in taking you. So if you say you want to do a PhD in molecular biology, it won't work. You have to be very specific towards what is the research question that the host is interested in investigating and what questions you could take as part of that hierarchy. So that getting an understanding of that sense, you may not be able to ensure that that is your project. No, but the PI will get a sense of how you process information and whether you can come up with questions of your own. So I think that is very beneficial. I think the mail that you write is gonna be very important. So make sure you highlight the fact that if you have had some experience, some prior experience in the same area that the PI works on, try to highlight that okay, since I've worked on this, it has been helpful, and these are the skills that I can actually utilize to address some questions in the field. Or why actually, again, the why comes back. Why actually do you think that PI would be a good host for you? So if the mail is interesting, they'll go to the CV. If the CV is interesting, then they're gonna respond to you. So yeah, that's the key.
Perfect. Thank you so much. These were really, really helpful insights, I think, for the audience. I think we've taken in maybe one more question. Can you request for meetings with the potential hosts? So can you ask them for, let's say, a Zoom meeting, for example? And anything to add about your interviews that took place online? So
Yeah.
any experience sharing?
Yeah. I'll go first because the thing is, when you're writing a letter, so that is the first point where you spark the interest between two people. And if they are interested, they will get back to you with a reply. And the communication needs to continue, and automatically it will lead to a Zoom meeting because everyone wants to know each other in person rather than just the email. And they do also have a point where you need to have to present for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, where you have to showcase your work, what you have done during your PhD or during your masters. You have thesis work, right? That is so we have. I was part of many interviews which we have done for the next postdocs in the lab. So what there are 10% of people who actually include 2 or 3 slides extra at the end of the presentation, including what they want to do at the new lab which they are looking for. So this actually gives a lot of clarity on what the person is looking at, and the PI also is interested in, okay, whether, so that tells you, okay, the intent is very clear that this guy wants to get into the lab. So that is important.
To leverage on what you can also offer the lab, right, with your
Yes, yeah, yeah,
expertise,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Thank you. I think we've answered most of the questions. If there are any specific questions related to, say, masters or for EMBO, I think the links have been posted in the chat. We will also we were at the end of the web talk series as well for this week. So all the registrants, all the participants will get a couple of, say, important slides from us, important links from us. But before we close, I have one last question to the three of you. Santosh and Darshana, maybe you give me one one statement, or let's say one reason on why Germany? Why did you choose to and go to Germany? Why should our audience members go to Germany? And with maybe for you, it's I mean, we know why should they apply, but what makes it, for example, super attractive even for EMBO to get researchers from India application? So maybe that's my last question. And then maybe you could also answer, when is your next round that you're going to go to institutions in India next time to speak about your recruiting for the fellowships? So these, I'd go first to Darshana.
Sorry.
Yes, Darshana.
Yep. So why Germany? I think work-life balance for me was important, and they have really structured systems here in place. So since I came from an industry, I know how things work in India, both in the research as well as in the industrial setup. So work-life balance was what I was looking forward to here. And I would say I'm very happy with what I have today.
Thank you. And if I may ask, what is this one challenge that you face? So it's not all glorious. If there's one challenge that you face during your research or in generally about Germany, what would that be?
Food, definitely. Food, spices. It's very difficult to get Indian food, but then you're gonna work on your cooking expertise, I believe. I think people here are very, very impressed with Indian cooking. So you make a lot of friends if you provide good food. So
Thanks for the tip. Yes, Santosh, over to you.
Yeah. Can you repeat the question, Adishri?
Yeah, so I wanted to first ask, so why Germany? I mean, now you've made your
Yeah.
transition to the United States, but you stayed in Germany for many years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what would you still recommend to the future applicants?
Yeah. 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 As Darshana rightly pointed, it's the work-life balance which is very important, and Germany offers that. In fact, entire Europe offers that, and Germany EMBO is there in Europe, so you have all the reasons there to go, and of course the infrastructure and the labs, which, like, if you can get into some of the best institutes like Max Planck's or something, I don't think you'll get a better infrastructure to expose staff. So you can use it as a nice launch pad for the next career options. So I would recommend people to go there. And also regarding challenges, nothing much. I agree with Darshana with respect to food. Yeah, I'm very foodie. So that's important. You should learn to cook before you come there, or
Thank you.
you'll get used to cooking
You
there.
get used to it, yes. Thank you for these aspects as well. For those who would also like to know that there are offices of, let's say, Max Planck Institution. There is also a couple of universities from Germany who have their offices in India, have representatives looking after, recruitment, also your questions. I'm posting a link here, and these are a part of our network. So please, you can go to this website and see who you can contact and get more information on this. So you need not start from the contacts in Germany. You can start very well with contacting these representatives here already. Yes, Vid, now over to you.
You repeat the question, please.
Yes, of course. What are you looking for from Indian researchers for your applications, specifically? And then my last question was that when are you going to be on your next round for promotions of the EMBO fellowships?
So maybe I'll take up the second question first. We're tentatively planning a visit, perhaps March 2024. It won't be as extensive as the one that we did this year. I think we covered 9 cities, and that's still, it doesn't really cast a wide net, but yeah, but I think, as you can imagine, that's a tremendous effort to put in it just in terms of coordination and getting all the logistics worked out. So we probably will do something similar to what we are doing today, is, have more online webinar sessions, information sessions, and then, yeah, I think in March, perhaps there might be a visit. So I'll share that information when I have it.
Thank
To your
you.
first
Maybe to that question, do you also host? So is there a way of participating in online sessions, or are there teams who are able to answer, on the go questions if people don't actually get to meet you in person?
Sure. So, I mean, we don't have a set date at this point for these information sessions, but if there is interest, we would be happy to set up something and share it widely. Yeah. The first question about what is EMBO looking for? I think in one of my first slides, I mentioned through all these schemes, international mobility is really key, and I think it allows for, as Darshana mentioned, Santosh mentioned, and I experienced it myself. It's scientific exchange, but it's also cultural exchange. You meet your local hosts from that country, but also colleagues from different parts of the world. And I think nothing can beat that experience. Your perspectives are broadened, your scientific skill set, I think, is also broadened. Your exposure, you get more exposure to maybe industry, maybe other areas such as yours and mine, Adishri. We have moved away from research. We started in research, moved away from research, but we're still contributing and working in that research ecosystem. So I think it also opens up other career opportunities should one be interested in exploring. So yeah, I think it's worthwhile to do your homework. I would say perhaps for me at least the most critical element has been networking, to reach out to people, talk to them, ask questions, tell them what you're interested in, what you're looking for, and yeah, and then take some calculated risks.
Perfect. Thank you so much for summing it up really nicely. I think that brings us to the end of our conversation for today. I would like to thank the audience for their engagement, so many questions. We hope this was helpful to you. We've posted some links. Like I said, we'll come back with more information for you. And thank you so much, Darshana, Santosh, Vid. Santosh, thank you for joining, especially at such an odd hour from
It's a
California.
pleasure.
Was a really interesting discussion. I learned a lot from all of
Yeah.
you, and I have a better insight into things. I wish you all now a nice morning, evening, afternoon, depending on wherever you are, and soon a very nice weekend. Thank you very much, and all the best for those researchers who are looking to make the move to Germany. Bye-bye, and thank you from me.
Bye.
Adishri.
Thank you for
Thanks,
Thank you all.
Adishri, for hosting
thanks a
this.
lot. Yes,
Thank
thanks a
you.
lot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.